Hi, my name's Kat, and today Reddit has been asked, what is the biggest cheapskate move you've ever witnessed anybody do? When I worked on computers in town, I went to numerous calls of people complaining about their internet not working. The internet stopped working because their neighbour finally decided to skewer their own Wi-Fi. My sister would only buy one light bulb and unscrew it and take it around to whatever room she was using. Waitress a banquet-style meal for 25 people one night, which was $25 per head. Watched a woman accept at least $30 from each person to then use their money to pay her portion. Then she pocketed the rest of it. I worked with this guy in a place that had free coffee, cookies, sodas, etc. He would take coffee creamers home all the time for his cereal in the morning. He was so cheap he would take handfuls of creamers home for his goddamn cereal because it was too cheap to buy milk. Not to mention all the other stuff he would take home. Cookies, soda, sugar, salt, pepper, etc. He wouldn't spend a cent of his own money on anything if he could help it. He was a single guy in his mid-30s in a very good paying job. $80,000 a year, 15 years ago. I also remember this time we were on a vendor-sponsored golf tourney, and the vendor says you can have whatever you want from the course, clubhouse, snack shack. The guy grabs about $100 worth of beef jerky. Everyone just looked at him and couldn't believe what was happening. He was never invited again to things like that. On the flip side, he's now probably a retired millionaire living in squalor that's too afraid to spend his own money. Bought Tupperware to a buffet, filled it up when no one was looking, and also put the napkin dispenser and silverware into his backpack. When I was a kid, I was eating at a restaurant with my parents. The table next to us, an old couple, were just finishing. The husband left a few dollars. As a tip, I guess. As they were leaving, the wife picked up the dollars when the husband wasn't looking, and they walked out. Whilst on a ski trip, our group of friends went out to dinner. We all had beers and cheaper meals, except one friend, who ordered a steak, red wine, and whiskey. When the check comes, the dude has a nerve to suggest splitting the bill equally to make it easier. His meal was quadruple of what mine was. That is some cheapskate crap. When I was 19, was working as an au pair abroad and took an emergency flight to the US to say my final goodbyes to my mum before taking her off of life support. My dad offered to loan me $5 for the hospital cafeteria, which I could pay back once I had time to get cash in USD. I've worked a ton of jobs, so I can name a few. When I was in my early teens, I worked as a waiter and I hated working on Sunday mornings. We would get the church people and they never tipped, or they would leave those fake bills that had prayers of whatever on them. Every Sunday we had a lady who would show up with her entire family, about 15 to 20 of them, and they always stiffed the waiter. They'd leave one of those crappy prayer papers that looked like money and a buck or two. When I worked at the bank, we had an old guy who was a multi-millionaire. He would come in to get a statement every week on Friday. He would go through it at the teller window, pull out a manila folder full of receipts, and he would compare them to his statement. He would refuse to move. If a receipt was missing and he couldn't account for it in his statement, he would freak out and say that he was being robbed and that his account had been compromised. He caused a scene every week. My manager booted him out of the branch when he made one of our tellers cry because the old man had noticed that his statement showed a transaction for something under $1 and he couldn't account for it, and he threatened to have her fired. I also used to work with a guy at a job where we basically travelled around the country. He would empty all the free creamers into a cup and drink it. He hated coffee but loved vanilla creamer. He would do this at all of our stops. On several occasions, employees would ask him to stop or ask to pay for a cup of coffee. Every damn time he would throw a fit because according to him, it was free. When I was enlisted, a bunch of us would sometimes go to a strip club. We had one guy who would sometimes pick up the money people would throw at the strippers and act like it was his. Smoke a cig butt from the ground. And I was on a date. Shortly out of high school, a friend invited me to a free outdoor concert. I drove, I paid for parking. On the way he bragged about being in some drug diversion youth program that paid him a stipend. Once parked, he asked to leave his bowl in my car. After the concert, he asked me if I wanted to grab dinner. After we had been seated at the restaurant, he tells me to set him a price limit because he didn't want to take advantage. Apparently I was paying for dinner too. There was a local wing restaurant that had some sort of spicy wing challenge. Eat 10 of these things, I think they were called suicide wings or some crap, without drink of water, and your meal was free. I think that they seasoned these weasels with mace. They were bad. I was stationed with a guy who was such a cheap ass, he would eat those wings for lunch almost every day just for a free meal. My dad told me that an older lady that lived round the corner needed some yard work done. I went over and talked to her. Started on the following Saturday and worked Sunday as well. Cleaned her whole yard. At the end of the Sunday, she hands me $2. I just left telling myself, what the duck? I have a friend who was cheap as hell when we were in college, early 2000s. He's a bit better now. One night we all went out to dinner together, 4 or 5 couples. The waitress gave each couple their own check. 4 guys just paid their bill and moved on with life. This dude did the math and made his girlfriend pay her share of the bill. Now I get it. He didn't have a lot of money, but they had been together for almost a year at that point. They could have just squared up later when no one else was around. In college, my girlfriend, now wife, and I lived in the same building as all our friends, but we had our own small apartment. All the parties were downstairs. One morning after the party, we woke up and went to the Denny's down the street, as per tradition. We were the first ones there, and we would have had our food by the time the rest of the group showed up. We hang out, eat, and have fun. Now, I know I have a better job than my friends. I worked construction, so I leave a $20 tip on my check, so I'm sure the waitress would get a decent tip. I found out later that they didn't have enough money to cover their bill, so this guy takes the 20 I'd left and used it to pay his bill. The poor waitress got $2 tip for dealing with 15 people first thing in the morning. And there's a lot more comments on this thread, so if you'd like a part 2, please comment down below. And also, comment down below if you've ever witnessed any cheapskate move that your friends or family or just people you know when you worked at restaurants or whatever have done. I'd love to know. Hope you enjoyed listening to this video, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. This video is sponsored by me. Sweet Mouthful Mixes brings pick and mix sweets straight to your door. Choose up to 10 scoops of your favourite sweets, or pick a pre-packed bag. Sweet Mouthful Mixes has a 5-star hygiene rating and full PPE is worn whilst making the bags. With over 50 sweets to choose from, you're guaranteed to find something you like. Treat yourself, you've earned it. Get 20% off with code REDDIT.